If you'll indulge me, Senator Cardin, I might just carry forward a few further questions that this conversation has sparked. I was particularly intrigued by Dr. Slaughter's perspective on bringing in new types of people, making the system more diverse, allowing us access to new types of talent pools. But it struck me at the same time, Ambassador Reese, you participated in the Harvard study on reimagining the American diplomacy and our foreign service. Something that came from that study, the Harvard study was talking about the need for changing the culture in the department. And the study talked about an internal caste system. I think about the idea that Dr. Slaughter brings to bear, which I find quite attractive, but at the same time, acknowledging the reality that I saw when I served as an ambassador myself within the State Department. And here I'm talking about the difference in treatment between a Foreign Service officer and a civil servant. I would think, and again, my private sector experience is that merit should be the primary driver of how a person is promoted, how a person is treated within the department. But there very much is a sense that there is an internal caste system within the State Department today. We're talking about ways to reimagine that, I know, but I think it's a very real concern. And I think that a system that puts a priority on personnel category, on tenure, rather than merit is something that seriously needs to be re-examined. I think we all know the case, I won't mention the name, of a civil servant that was recruited by an ambassador to be a DCM, a Deputy Chief of Mission, the Chief Operating Officer, because that ambassador felt that the person had the management talent, I presume, that they wanted to see. Yet we had the Foreign Service Grievance Board rule that that individual had to return to Washington. They filed a complaint. The union filed a complaint to not allow that to happen. It required Secretary Albright to intervene to change that situation. And that sends a very troubling message to the folks at the State Department. It reinforces this caste system sort of perspective, and it's something that I hope that we'll tackle. Ambassador Reese, I'd like to get your perspective on how we would go about addressing the way that the American Foreign Service Association looks at the building there, how we go about including our civil servants more, in a greater fashion, and how we send the right sort of message as we help think through how the State Department determines assignments.
Thank you, Senator. I think that we are seeing a kind of a transformation of how we look at the issues that we deal with in the State Department. Dr. Slaughter has mentioned this in her own writings, that today we face a lot of problems that are related to science and technical matters, global issues like climate change, and so on. So the State Department is structured into geographic bureaus and functional bureaus. And because civil servants are experts, deep experts, for whom I have great respect, in many subjects, they tend to be serving in those functional bureaus. And so as we start to deal with these issues, I think that there's going to be a lot more emphasis on their talents and on what they can bring to bear in dealing with these very serious issues. For example, I worked in arms control, the Arms Control Bureau.
I've been told your mic is not on, if you could turn the mic on.
It doesn't seem to like my thumb here.
Yeah, it's on now.
It's on now, thank you. I think as we approach these problems, we will see that we are relying more and more on civil servants. If I could say something about the question of the caste system, our reference to the caste system had to do with the division into cones, and our recommendation that we abolish those cones as a way of sort of racking and stacking Foreign Service officers, and consider all of our officers to be multifunctional and expect them to be expert in all the different areas.
I certainly saw that conal hierarchy as well in my embassy, but I was thinking particularly, it at least brought to mind, that term brought to mind the difference in perspective of great civil servant staff that we have in the State Department with long institutional knowledge. And, I think we have a lot of opportunity there. Secretary Biggin, I know you spent time on this issue too. I'd love to get your thoughts.
It was not easy to manage the multifaceted Department of State because competition for assignments and the frequency of rotations led to a constant reward and constant disappointment by the people who were seeking advancement in the building. And I tried a couple of times to wade in to manage expectations, and I think ham-fistedly. This requires a very deep rethink. Ambassador Reese does mention that the largest proportion of civil service employees are in functional bureaus, but that's not the entirety of it. So we do have blends of civil service and foreign service, including in the embassies and including up to the ranks of ambassador. And that blurred line between the two invites all sorts of misperception, including the perception that there is a caste system. That, not to mention the compensation levels and the personnel practices and the legal strictures are all different, and yet these people are coexisting within the same Department of State is a challenge to manage. We also have a third set of employees, which are our locally employed staff. At least the line is there a little bit more clear. Those are non-U.S. citizens working in support of the department's mission abroad. And then we have contractors as well who come in. And I think there's an opportunity here for a complete rethink of how we manage that blended workforce and how we lead that blended workforce to ensure we don't have this kind of perception that there are different castes inside the department. That perception is a real one and exists. I know it.
On a final note, I'd just like to underscore a point that you made about training. As a business person, when I came into my role as ambassador, and I keep focusing back on the past, but it's a very recent experience for me, I was shocked at the lack of relevant training. There's a tremendous amount of language training that goes on. If you look at the budget, we spend a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of hours on training people in languages, and they count that as training in the way they capture it. There's a lot of time spent on orientation. I went through it myself for a month, going through an orientation process. But if you look at functional training, at geographic area training, the types of things that Ambassador Reese talked about, there's a real dearth of training there. That was certainly my perception. Now, we rely on experience and hopefully assigning a junior person to a more senior person that has experience in the area, but you know how the rotation system works.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that falls through.
Well, I want to amplify what Ambassador Reese said because it was in slightly technical language and maybe what didn't register. She said 15% of the State Department's workforce should be basically in training at any given time. That doesn't happen today, and in fact, oftentimes with both the pace of our rotation and the pressing needs to get new personnel out to post, supervisors will press people to start their assignment and to forego training. The Pentagon would never do that. The United States military would never take somebody off a deployment and put them onto a new deployment. It may be in the most critical, needs of the country, but as a routine matter, that would be unforgivable. The way the Pentagon has a unit deployed is there's one training to go to deployment, there's one deployed, and then the one that was deployed is back in training again afterwards. State Department doesn't preserve that ability for our officers to do so, and we have to. Now, whether we shrink the mission, increase the size of the people, or just enforce it upon the existing organization as it is, we have to. And it's not just management training, it's not just issues training, it's leadership training too. I have a pet view, pet theory that a lot of our diversity issues are bad leadership. And we just need to train people to not make hasty or biased decisions, but to reflect and make seasoned decisions. And that is a responsibility of leadership, because a diverse organization is a stronger organization for the United States of America or for the private sector in a corporation. But it starts with the leaders, and we have to train the leaders.
Thank you.
I want to